Pleasant good afternoon to each and everyone. Welcome to Facts Not Fiction. Of course, in studio with me this afternoon is none other than the Shadow Minister for Education, the Honorable Gentle Lady herself, Anita Haynes. Let me first welcome all of you to the program. As usual, you know today is the day that we are in studio. On Fridays, we will be out in the field, and this Friday, I think that we will be proceeding to somewhere.
Yes. Lassetau.
Lassetau. Yes. Right. So we'll be up on that side. So prepare yourself. We come in, and you will have the opportunity to talk with us, voice some of your concerns in those areas, the neglect by the administration, the government, and so on and so on. But be that as it may, I want to welcome Anita to the program. I want her to know that she's our honored guest this afternoon. And we are so happy to have her here with us on this program as we continue to bring individuals to discuss matters that definitely is in the public interest. So, MP, welcome to the program and nice having you.
Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Roberts. Thank you for the invitation to this program and to discuss these issues. And also, I hope that I will be able to be there on Friday to welcome you into my constituency, because Lassetau is part of the Tabaquite constituency as well.
Beautiful, much appreciate. I know Archie in that area is all kind of wild meat and so on up in that area, you know, Archie, so I think we could Archie, you trying your best to make me get pulled, you know. I realize since in CJS you're trying to make me get pulled, you know, Archie. So be that as it may, let's get into things. Before we get into things, I just want to make mention of the four fishermen. MP Rushton Parry continue to advocate. Today I was asking, coming up, if there's any word yet on these individuals. So far, I haven't heard anything whatsoever. And let us continue to pray that these individuals, that they are still well, and let's hope that those who continue to search the high waters, we will have some kind of progress very soon in that area and in that regard. Okay, so I know I want to tell the family that our prayers goes out with you, of course, because this is what we can do at this time. We know for a fact that those professionals, they are out there and they are doing what they have to do to see how soon they would be able to, let's just say, rescue these individuals, okay? On the crime scene, well, things continue to deteriorate as normal with this jokey Minister of National Security. I always consider him a professional idiot, and the Prime Minister another idiot. And of course, where is Stuart Young? Where is Stuarty boy? I don't know if Stuarty going to look for them Spanish and them. I don't know what's going on there, Archie. I don't know if Archie has some kind of word. But Stuarty, we find you missing in action, so tell us what's going on. Tell us what's taking place, how the Dragon deal going, everything all right? But ladies and gentlemen, I have the MP in studio here this afternoon, and we want to talk a bit about education here this evening. First of all, I want to just go back a little bit, probably as far as 2021. I may want to just drop back there. We have recognized, MP, that a number of our primary school students were not able to make that pass mark, so to speak. And some people blame parents, some people blame COVID, some people blame the UNC, some people blame everybody, because in Trinidad and Tobago, they always look for somebody to blame.
Correct.
And I think that from where I sit, the government is responsible for the administration of policies, and I think that anybody to blame, it will really come back to the government if we are to take into account all the intricacies in relation to COVID and device and Wi-Fi and this and that and that. What's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on that situation?
You know, you are absolutely right. When we talk about, well, you went back to 2021, but if we go back to 2020, you would recall that was an election year. We had a different Minister of Education, too, at the time, Anthony Garcia and Lovell Francis, who at the very beginning of the COVID pandemic came out in a big way and told us 65,000 students without devices, right? They could not get on to school at all. And we saw that. Then they told us we didn't have anything to worry about because we were the best in the world at COVID. You remember that part, right?
Number one in the world.
We had number one. And then we had the election that they mama guide people and try to find some way. So they're back in power. And then all of a sudden, we were no longer number one and everything was shutting down. We were asking then, first budget, what are you doing about devices? They allocated some $45 million, and that was supposed to be able to buy devices for the children who are now fully in online school.
Right.
What happens? We come back for a mid-year review, you ask how many devices, you're asking. Then all of a sudden you're hearing adopter school. Where is the corporate sponsorship adopter school? Same thing. How many is a simple question to answer. How many students were without devices? Of those students, how many you gave? Simple question, simple answer, should be simple math. Every single time, some new dance, some new song, some new story.
Yeah.
And the very fiction that you have to have this program to fight against. Because you're telling me that we come to the first year, we find out that 47,000 students never logged on to online school. The ministry did not release that information. That information came from a joint select committee. You're coming now, you're asking the ministry, why are these children not in school? Is it that they don't have devices? Is it that they have no electricity? Is it that they have no internet? What is the problem? They don't know. No answer. So then by the time we got to 2022, and we saw the first results of the students who would have been in Standard 3 and Standard 4 pandemic time, Standard 4, Standard 5, who it could only be an incompetent ministry. A new Minister of Education, but same P&M policy. Right. So it's not shocking that they are now same two ministers, well, different two ministers, but two ministers. We have Dr. Gatsby Dolly and Ms. Julian Morris. And they were the only persons in this country shocked by the results that you saw. And then they went so far as to say, listen, all we're trying to do is get these students to a passing grade. Trinidad and Tobago would usually excel regionally. We have our students going abroad on full scholarships. And now you are telling us, telling the students, aspire to pass. That is where they've taken our education sector. And so, to me, it is clear who is to be blamed. You had the beginning of the problem under P&M administration. You had a solution proffered by a P&M administration. You had the solution, they say they delivered it, and then we have the results. And all of it, the one constant is the P&M administration.
When we look at, let's just touch a little bit on the laptop program that was going on during the 2010 to 15 period. When you listen to the Prime Minister in Parliament, when he speaks about the devices being in the hands of these children, it's a disaster, one, and it's downright foolishness according to his word. looking back at that statement and comparing what has happened during the pandemic, how would you describe that statement by the Prime Minister?
To me, the Prime Minister was showing himself for exactly what he is, a very backward thinker. When you think about almost everything in this country at this point in time, I mean, he himself spoke about a work-from-home policy to spin completely around on that. And so when you listen then to all of them, actually, about digitization in the education sector, to them, that is a buzzword. It is a mama guy, you put a ministry, the ministry don't have to have a website, they don't have to have a mandate, but you call it something. But you could see that they really cannot grasp the concept. And so you had the Prime Minister saying that, and then you had the then Minister of Education, Anthony Garcia, saying, well, they'll buy laptops, but they will leave the laptops in the school for the children to use it. And I had the cause to ask him, so you don't know the difference between a laptop and a desktop? The very reason for the design of a laptop is for you to carry it somewhere. So what is the sense you're leaving it there? And that is the caliber of thinking that we are dealing with policymakers currently in charge. That is how they think about things. There is no innovation. There is no big picture thinking. There is keeping Trinidad in this small space that we're fighting for basic needs. So when we have to fight for road and fight for water and we have to fight for this, you think we could talk about education and digital spaces and jobs of the future? No, we have no water. We have no electricity. And that is where we are now, and that is PNM policy. That is exactly where they want to have us. This is not by accident. It is how they keep Trinidad and Tobago to ensure that when you come to deliver small gifts in an election year, people are grateful because you had absolutely nothing for the last 4 years.
When coming, let's just say you given the opportunity to become the Minister of Education, within your purview, would you bring back a full-scale laptop program to the schools?
I mean, we have to. We have to. What are you training our children for if that training does not incorporate technology? Think about the world that we're living in now. Look at this program. How are you? Who will do this? How are you training them for the world of the future if you give them a pencil and a piece of paper and say, imagine what the world is like? Mm-hmm. That is the chance we're giving our children, you know. Imagine you are coming to school. You could do everything on your phone and whatnot. And when you reach in school, they tell you put all of that away, right? Yeah. Who will build the apps? Who will design the technology of the future if our children have no access to it? Who is doing that? And I think we're doing them a real disservice, not just by not having the laptops, but not rethinking the curriculum to fully integrate the digital technology into it. When I said in 2022, when we were reopening the spaces, and they said, okay, well, fully back to physical school. And I said then, why return to the status quo? Right, the minister wanted to make it out like I was against physical school. Madness. All I'm saying is, are you not taking any of the lessons learned? Are you not incorporating anything that happened during the pandemic to say, okay, digital education, technology in school is so critical. Let us, while we are there physically, fully integrate the system so that not just in the event of a pandemic, but just because of education for the future, that you have a system created to have children who can work in the world that they will come out in. What else are they going to do? What are you training them for? And so yes, we would have more than a laptop program. We'll have a fully integrated curriculum that is looking at the jobs that these children will meet when they graduate, and so that you're not going to find the unemployment problem that we're having now.
And my reason for asking is that I said to the audience that we want to highlight the problems, but we also want to highlight some solutions to the problem that is existing, because as she always say, we could come here and say the government, but the people wants to know, well, okay, we fed up at the government, which we know, but what y'all plan to do going forward in order to assist us, in order to bring our children back to the point in education where we were before. Because I remember before Trinidad were topping. We could have shown off on the Caribbean, but now I mean everybody is better than Trinidad and Tobago. And I think one of the reasons is when we have a government that has no educational plan, and we have guessing ministers like Gaspy Dolly and Stuart Young and Alwari and all these guest stars. What happens is that while they embark on public relation to try to comfort the minds of the simple, the reality and the fact remain that while the minds of the simple may be comforted by whatever idiotism Rowley feel to speak, it doesn't help our children in the classroom.
Absolutely.
And we need to bring policies that will elevate our children. We need to have policies to deal with the violence in school. We need to have policies to curb the crime situation. And the government seems as though that they have no plan, and all they do is blame and blame and blame. And we have to wake up and come out of the I don't want to use, let me just say syndrome. I won't put nothing else in front of it. The syndrome that we're in. And this is one of the reasons why we will continue to invite people like you to these programs, so that the listening public will have an idea where education, where the UNC wants to take education, where we are, where we were, and where we go in is almost important. So that brings me to another topic. So of course you are advocating that we will have a full-scale digitalization programs within the school system, which will include laptops and all the
and retraining for teachers as well, right? Because they leave them out. I mean, when you think, look at how the PNM administration treated our teachers after the pandemic. You had teachers, tutor begging for a meeting. You couldn't even meet with the minister. Then you understood, and like the rest of Trinidad and Tobago, certainly all of us here appreciate and respect the medical staff for what they did during the pandemic. But teachers kept our school system going, and to be so thoroughly disrespected. And not only that, but again, after maintaining a system online, while still for those who could not get online, they maintained some sort of physical infrastructure, whether it be past papers, lessons to students who had, and it wasn't just devices. Let's face the reality. Trinidad and Tobago, there are homes with no electricity. I had families go in by a neighbor to charge a device on a car battery, come back home, make sure. That is the reality we live in Trinidad. So even if you get a laptop, you have no electricity, how are you doing it? How are you are automatically left behind without the teachers who are there, who understand the circumstances of the family, going the extra mile, and then you cannot now say things like, we are introducing a training program for teachers who want to incorporate technology in their bio lessons, technology in their math lessons. I mean, simple things, these are, and this is on rocket science. This is not something that you are incapable. It is just a matter of wanting the best for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and using your seat on the executive, because these are the things that cabinet can do. They always like to focus on what parliament could do and what they need a vote for. You need no vote for this. You don't need anything for this. The vote you got for this was in 2020 during the election. And all you need to do is have the political will, the interest of the people at heart, and you could get these things done. It's not multi-million-dollar ideas. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on absolute nonsense. These things, it just takes political will, directed from the cabinet, and it will get done.
We have a number of students within the classroom who are not capable of secular education. What are some of the plans? I know that under the partnership we had these, we had the NESC, the MIC, we had GATE, and we had a number of these institutions that the government closed down. What would be your take in terms of those children who are not able to take that level of education? What are some of your plans that you may want to bring to the table?
Correct.
Victor, Minister, MP, before you answer that question, I know the teaching service regulations prohibit teachers from speaking out on issues in the school.
Yes.
So sometimes people come to the studio, teachers come to the studio, and they talk off the air. And while the UNC was in government, they had a lot of programs in the school called CVQs.
Correct.
Right? Which
Correct.
is a skill-based assessment exams in all the tech voc areas like plumbing, welding, cooking, agriculture. Information coming to me from teachers are at a lot of these programs have ceased because of a lack of funding.
Correct.
Right? Now, I would like you to factor that into your answer, because he's asking you what plans we have in place. Because it's easy to say we will reintroduce it, right?
Correct. And I mean, just last Tuesday, so Tuesdays are my office days, so I came here and I met with some persons who were talking about the fact that not only are we clearly not thinking about exactly what you asked, the children who are unable to cope with the schoolwork from an academic space but are very skilled, very knowledgeable, and can do other things, but that we aren't thinking about, all right, when Sir, the woodwork teacher from the school retires, who's coming in, because you've had this gap in training for so long that there's no recruitment of teachers for the tech voc schools. When Miss who was doing this class, when she retires, who is coming in? Who? And then, I mean, and looking at how it happens with the teaching service, that they're telling people not to apply, not to do this, that there is no holistic thinking about what happens to an education sector as people move along in the system. There were two things that the People's Partnership did that allowed for the space to really not just survive but thrive. You had the NESCs, you had the programs within the school which facilitated the training of those who were able to access training. And it's very easy for those of us who sit in places to think about, all right, well, education is free, and so you just get there. But there are families where the uniform is a problem. Transportation to the school is a problem. If you live when you get to places like Lassiter and things, you'll see it's really not that easy to get to Surf Hall in Claxton Bay, right? For some persons. But in the Ministry of Tertiary Education, I'm from a rural community. I grew up in Piparo. In Piparo, the mechanic in the area, the mechanic knows how to do that and train some people. So if you are a young person and you find that they're idle, in small villages, you don't leave people idle, right? You find something to occupy and come, right? Those persons who would finish some level of school and whatnot, but you already have a skill. You were able to go into certification centers. If you learned your skill as an apprentice, you're able to go into certification centers, demonstrate your competence, and leave with a certificate. So you didn't have to find time and uniform and this to go and sit down to learn something you know how to do. Right. Because you'll know that if you grew up in communities that are outside of the urban hubs, you know that there are people who are to this day learning woodworking, learning tiling, you know how to do these things because you're doing it all your life. Your weekends were spent going to work with your uncle, with this one. And so if you are given an opportunity, an avenue to certify yourself, again, this is not an expensive endeavor. This is not thinking that, okay, well, we had to set up a whole new school and we had to spend $100 million to build an institute. No, this is saying, let us give people a fighting chance in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm sure you know somebody, they can't tell you how they know how to do it, but you very well know they know the skill.
I understand that that certification you're talking about it is accepted as a qualification
Correct.
by the point leasers people for this passport thing. Because I have
Correct.
known people who use these CVQ
Correct.
skill-based level 1 certificates
Correct.
to obtain their passport.
Correct. And when you do these things, right, you create a space. Because what people are asking for is an opportunity, a small one. So you get your level 1 certificate, you're making a little money, you get the thing, you save, you could go and upgrade yourself,
Yeah.
carry yourself to the next level. And then this idea, I think when the Minister for Social Development was asking if people needy or greedy, that is the way you treat people when you think about it. That is not that, they neither want to be needy nor greedy. They want an opportunity. They want a chance that when you look around Trinidad and Tobago now, I don't know if you see it, but the sense of hopelessness of, I don't know where to turn. Okay, so I finished school. Say, people who finish in school and you have no work, nothing, no job, you're unemployed 4 or 5 years, you've sacrificed to go to university, is that an incentive? Who wants to go now? Who wants to go through the hassle of finishing when all of us home together? Whether you're finishing Form 1 or you're finishing Form 5, you're unemployed the same way. Form 6, university, unemployed the same way, because we are losing opportunities because the government, the executive, is not putting people first in their policies at all.
And we will have to, I think education in somewhat needs to be a holistic plan set, because you raise some pertinent points where, because even in my area, there are those who would have to go by the bar to get some kind of Wi-Fi to do some kind of homework.
Yes.
There are those who will have to go out by the road and see if they could hack into the neighbor system. And there are also those without electricity. And if we really want to move Trinidad and to bring Trinidad to the point where we can even fantasize on Patrick Manning 2020 vision, so to speak, or even coming close to anything like first world status, we have to be able to deal with every aspect. I look at Singapore and I ask myself, I say, well, where the oil and the gas and all this, but I think that they have spent tremendous amount of time developing their human resources.
Correct.
And when it's unfortunate that a country like Trinidad and Tobago, who had so much boom in terms of oil and gas and this fine, and we really not spending time to develop our human resources, because there is, in our country today, there is people who really just can't provide a uniform to go to school. We have done some stationary drives because that is what I can do.
Correct.
We have done some food drives, which is, many people assist, call Mr. Roberts, look, we have 50 hampers here, come and do something in your area and so on. And of course we get enemy in that also, right? Because there is the sense of urgency and need that if you think that you give somebody that you feel really need it, and that the neighbor might be in a better position than that person, to the end of the day, you might see the neighbor smiling and
Yes.
looking good, but the neighbor is in the same khaki pants because they are unable to provide. My son, who go in secondary school right now, he tells me that, look, there is occasion where people will put their box lunch, they will eat half of the box lunch and put half to carry home for a child, for a brother, for a sister. And that is the reality that we are in.
Correct.
And when we have ministers, especially in the field of education, and they do not understand, they're not in touch with the people, with the ground, to know what is really happening within these homes. I heard Gaspidoli at one time talking about we have to get the police involved and this one involved with children who not coming to school and this and that. But children not coming to school, yes, there is delinquent parents in some cases, okay? But to the end of the day, there is parents who genuinely cannot provide for their children. And the social support, the social services in this country, I think that they need to really get involved.
Correct.
They need to get involved.
Absolutely. And you hear them all the time talking about the all of government approach. But to me, it's clear they don't talk to each other, right? They don't talk to each other. So you cannot tell me you have a family X on public assistance. That means you are in the system. You are in the social development system. They know what is going on with you. You had your house visit, everything to get through on this end. You have that same family, you see that child didn't come to school for a week, 2 weeks, a month, right? You in education know the child not going to school.
Yeah.
You in social development know the family is in need. Or they don't talk to each other at all. Or they sit down close by each other in cabinet. You have technical. There is no system, no functional system to cross-reference the data that each ministry may or may not be collecting. So that when I asked if they knew of the 47,000 students who never accessed school during the pandemic, and this is literally, this is not persons who logged on once, twice, logged on once for the week. Those counting as present. This is never, not 1 day, not 1 hour, not 1 minute of school in 2 years. When I asked if you have an answer for how many of these persons are back in the system, you want to give wrong the way political answers in Parliament. And so I had to let the minister know via the speaker that I'm not asking you because I want to know people's business, you know. If we don't know where these children are, you're ending up in a bigger problem in the future. If you are not collecting the data as education, well, say, okay, social development was tasked with collecting the data, national security was tasked with but nobody cares whether or not they re-enter the school system. Because if you understand how many came back in, then it is a simple measure of targeted interventions for those who never return to the system. Because did they leave Trinidad and Tobago? Are they no longer living? I mean, come on. And so this, like I said, there is laziness and arrogance when you see even how they approach answering sensible questions. Because I mean, if you know me, if you've seen me, I am not coming at you because I want somebody to see me on TV. Yeah. I'm asking a question because there's a reason to ask this question at this time. There's information that is needed for the public. There's a role for Parliament to hold the executive accountable. You cannot tell me that you want to spend X number of millions of dollars on a vacation revision program, but you can't tell me how many of these children are back in school, whether or not this program will help them, who the program is. Come on. It's simple. We are dealing with the public's money. We are dealing with the next generation of Trinidadians and Tobagonians. And if you are not doing things in a purposeful and solution-oriented manner, you are wasting our time, you are wasting our money, and you are sacrificing the future of Trinidad and Tobago at a political altar.
I am wondering if this administration really serious about education. And my reason for wondering is because I have seen, a tremendous amount of children who seems to be lost. I'm speaking about children that just not going to school, children who going to school but just not interested in what is happening in the classroom, children who is going to school and formulating their gangs from that age, children who, just doing things that is out of the ordinary.
Yes.
And it seems as though that the government have no plan, it doesn't have a handle on it. I have seen in some schools in South where the teachers, they are feeling threatened by the students. there is some schools that the teachers is bullies, and there is some schools where the children bullying the teachers. And everybody cussing everybody, so to speak. Everybody just whatever. And it seems as that there's like there's no hope in the educational system. It seems that there is no strategic planning, that there is no policies, there is no formulation of ideas that how we could treat with these schools that are not doing so well versus the schools that is doing well.
Correct. And
I think the easiest thing to do is not to try to interfere with the schools that are doing well. We'll get into that later on. But pattern what is happening in the schools that is doing well, which is the denominational schools, and bring the policies to your government schools.
I mean, simple logic, right? If you have something that is working, you would want to carry that model into the space where it's not working so well. And then I've heard, and it said they want to interfere with the thing that is working and leave the thing that is not working alone.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, that is laziness, that is incompetence, that is also looking for somebody to blame, right? That is also deflecting our attention. So asking us to focus on this, creating a little issue here, focus on this, and in fact that the rest of the system crashing upon itself. But you're right about finding a way. When you listen to the cries of those who are key stakeholders in government schools, and as recognizing that teachers are stakeholders, students are stakeholders, parents are stakeholders, and you're coming into the, and everybody who keeps that school infrastructure up to date, they are the stakeholders. You hear the issues of things like class sizes, the space that you are in, a space where teachers are unable to give students the attention that is required, because these are still children. They may look, some of them might look really big, but they are children. And you come into the system. Then when you think about it, that I have people coming to me in tears, finish all their certification, teaching certification, extra things to bolster them to be really excellent educators, that they apply to the teaching service 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, no call, no message, no nothing, begging to come into the system, knowing that you have teachers understand, overwhelmed with class sizes, that you refuse to hire and create an education system that will allow you to spend less on crime, for example, in the future, but you see education not as the investment that it is, but on a cost that you are unwilling to bear. And that's the situation we're facing, you know. When they came in and they said 2015, I went into the Senate in 2017. That was the first year they started to introduce the major cuts to GATE. My maiden contribution in the Senate is during the budget debate. And I'm talking, it is the mark of a regressive government that treats education as a cost that it is unwilling to bear. Because if you are spending on things and you cut here, what do you create for the future? And look, we're seeing it between 2017 and 2022. That's 5 years. And you are seeing the state, and nothing to do with COVID, you know. And that's why last year in discussing the exam results, I was very focused on showing that the results were declining from as early as 2017, and there was no pandemic in 2017, no pandemic in 2018, no pandemic in the early part of 2019. 2020 is seeing the results drop, and then they want to say, oh, it's the pandemic. So what happened to the years before? Because there was a decline. So all of us crazy then. You know, the numbers lying on you. Come on. And that is what they've been doing. You said it before, that it's either PR or a mama guy or blatant fiction to create a society that acting as if the rest of us are living in a different Trinidad and Tobago, and their Trinidad and Tobago is so amazing. You know?
MP, I'm very curious about some figures here. You have any idea of like what the budgetary allocation to education was under a typical budgetary allocation under UNC government as compared to a PNM government?
Yeah, it would. So education across the board would have always remained within the top 3 of the budgetary pie, right? Sometimes you have
In
education,
both administrations?
both administration, and that is what is very interesting,
But
right?
that is that.
No, because it shows you that it is not a question of how
Correct.
much, it is a question of how you spend
Yes.
it, right? And so I've made that point several times, that it is not a resource problem that we have, it is a competence problem. $5.6 billion gets you a long way if you know how to make sense.
So when they cut in all these programs that
Where is it
was
going?
in place, building new schools and all these things, and if the allocation is by and large the same,
More or less.
where that money evaporating and
No,
going?
but then you have now, where you see this curious thing of government owing government. So they did not pay the school transportation persons for years. And so every year you get a chunk of money allocated to pay drivers. You don't pay the electricity bill, right? These things, and I'm being very serious. People think we're joking when they hear these things, right? So it's not necessarily to look at the allocation at the beginning, you know. You see, when we come back for standing finance committee and we go through, you allocated this. None of it was spent. Where did it go? Did you transfer the money to something else? Because they make the, I mean, I know we're talking about education, but
No, you go ahead.
but there is
Mm-hmm.
landslips across my constituency. You saw under Ministry of Works and Transport the allocation for the landslip. You come back and you look at it, and less than 50% spent. Now I know you ain't fix no landslip by me.
Yeah.
You allocate the money, so you can come in and fix the landslips. You say, okay, Panda, you didn't get a chance to do the work. So they are not completing their mandate. The money is going into this vacuum of who knows where.
Victor, where does money going? Because what the
Because
MP
money
is saying,
is-
the money allocating, but the product's not there.
Correct.
And next style I notice in the Ministry of Education is they close on all these projects. Let's just give, for example, e-books. That was well on the way and well in production. Now they come and
To
it
start
is
it from
announced
scratch.
that they're going to do it as if it's a big thing. Right? They close it down, you know, and they come and they make an announcement and big media expose, right? And it stops right there.
Correct. They did that for e-books. They did that for GATE, where they stop. So if you use your GATE, poor you, didn't know, right? You use your GATE for a diploma, and you're using the diploma to get into the degree program. You're thinking, right, I got my diploma, I'll go into the degree. Looking for GATE? GATE closed. You use it already. You use $10,000 and they say that's enough for you. That is all the country could afford for you.
Yeah,
Nothing.
yeah.
Pay the rest. They reversed that very backward decision last year and made it a big announcement. But that is the way it was before. You then created the problem and now coming to say a solution. Same thing with TechVoc. They closed it down. Now they're reopening it, partially under youth, the Ministry of Youth and partially under Education, and saying, look at this wonderful partnership, but you make that problem. You come in, you close all of that down. And then what? And then you are the solution. But that's what I told you from the very beginning. That is the PNM strategy from ever since, that you stifle people to the point of almost desperation. And at the very end, you come and you say, all right, look at how great I am. I'll give you this. Take this little thing. Things you had already, things you had before, things they took from you, things they took from you. You get it back and you say, well, boy, thanks, you know, they're really working hard.
Well, Rowley's a mastermind with that plan, and I think the people of Trinidad and Tobago enjoy that because we have seen that strategy from the inception of the PNM. They suffocate you throughout the length and breadth and keep you to the point where you're almost ready to die, and then they bring some water and they bring some nice meal and everybody feel everything is good again. So I think the people in the country enjoy that, and Rowley know exactly how to play that, because when we look at all the schools that is in Highwoods, I and Archie visited some was early childhood actually. We visit some schools, and I'm talking about foundation, everything still erected, and it's just overtaken with overgrown bushes and trees, and I'm talking about millions of dollars that is sitting, wasting, while we have some children cannot even afford to get a meal. And I am wondering, how would these infrastructure that has been left there for so many years, if they would be able to even use again, or we will have to go all over? Because I mean, when you speak about the material, the steel and so on that is exposed and rusted in such a way as we have seen.
Well, exactly. That's what we saw. That's what we saw. That the steel started to get
this
exposed.
Is millions of dollars that came out from the budget allocation for these schools, and yet, and I think actually we need to go back out there and really bring this to the forefront.
I agree with you.
There's a gentleman that they call Wall Street, and they operate a program in the States. He's from Chumakak. And he was asking me, he said, Mr. Roberts, where's the evidence of these schools that the UNC keeps saying abandoned?
Well, remember, they went as far as saying the 100 schools that was claimed that the UNC built was not built.
Yeah.
Right? And Mr. Karim went and he got pictures for each one of the 100 schools, and they listed it out in Parliament. Right? So, I do understand.
We have to go and find those schools.
Well, you're right. Fine, because some of them covered on in bush. It have some schools 95% complete. Right up the road, right by close to your constituency, it have reform. These children in a little temple, crouching up on it, have a big sprawling mansion.
We passing along that side Friday, where we could get a video of that.
Well, I prefer to go another day because it's such a sprawling mansion and edifice that it wouldn't. That trip we're making is a long trip, and we have plenty things to cover up on that side.
All right,
plenty
so
landslips, not so?
Yes, it's correct.
Yeah, we'll have to do that actually. We'll have to, because remember I was shocked when I came across the aviation school. Remember?
Well, yes.
I mean, I have never known about that school. Being honest and frank, never. And I think it's on that same day we discovered some of those.
A set of schools covered on in bushes, vines, covered on vines.
But MP, coming back to the topic, we have children coming out from school every year.
Yes.
And these children coming out from school, and it seems to me like there is no opportunities available for these children. What do you think is the root cause? Because, I mean, we just can't have people going to school,
getting a certificate and coming
and then you come in and you're looking for the best gang, whether it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because that's how you might reach 12, 13, 14, 15, because it's, you know what I say, them youths I'm talking about, boy, who is 6 and who is 7 and who is 8 and who is 9. And I tell them, I said, right now we might close to be 99 because, but I mean, we have these children. We was in C just recently, and we had some youth actually that came and spoke. And they were really crying out because what they are saying that, look, there is no opportunities for us.
Yeah.
So what must we do?
Correct. Everywhere you go, you get the same thing, right? And it goes back to what I said earlier in the discussion of the curriculum. And even before, when you spoke about Vision 2020, when you think about developed status, when you think about what that means, right? We really don't need to import an idea of development. We are Trinidad and Tobago. We are an island with very resourceful people, with very smart people, and it's all different kinds of smart, right? And when I said we needed to re-engineer and rethink our curriculum, and include digital education. That isn't just on your everyday subjects, right? That includes things like agriculture. It includes things like how you feed yourself as a nation. So they want to start at the end, talk about food importation bill and buy local, but refuse to put it at the beginning in the education system, a way that you say, okay, schools in certain areas where that skill set is so required, you have integrated into the curriculum programs that will and it is also getting away from the sense of Trinidadians and Tobagonians are only good to go and get a job. We must go and work for somebody, find somebody to hire us. We are capable of being the people who hire people, you know. We are capable of creating systems where you understand that you are going through the school system. Yes, you get your necessary passes and whatnot, but you're given the tools to be entrepreneurs. That when you talk about the farmers in Tabuki who are able to make a very good living, they shouldn't be begging and scraping for access where they are feeding this nation, right? It ought to be that is integrated within the school system in areas like that. When you think about the fishing communities, the people who go into the fishing space, they're not supposed to be the people who didn't make it. You should design your curriculum in a way that you understand technology in fishing, how to optimize, go from catching the fish and then marketing it in a way that you could make money, right? When you think about things like packaging and production, what stops us from allowing our school system to be incubators, or even just as you come out? So everybody rather rush to go UE, rush to go university, you could go to these training institutes, that you utilize the skills that you have from the communities that you are from, and you are business owners. Instead, everybody traipsing up to Port of Spain, traffic on the highway forever. You're coming from Grandy, you're coming from Mayari, you're coming from Tabakit, you're coming from Labrie, and everybody like drones for government work. And then you're afraid the government, because if you talk against them, you lost your one thing. And that is the way the system was designed, to keep the PNM in power. And nobody could tell me differently.
Well, I think that's a very brilliant idea, because what will happen is that you'll be able to harness the skill from within the community.
Correct.
And you will very well produce entrepreneurs and things right in the community.
Correct.
Allowing them to
build their communities. And when we build communities, we build our country, you know. And so it's not this isolationist thing where you say, all right, well, but we are so focused on building a center that you leave all these satellite communities on their own, struggling. That's why we can't get no good road who studying us down on our side. But these are communities that have been producing not just human resources, but the new ways of thinking for our country. We shouldn't have to go to Port of Spain to produce from it, though. We should be able to do this in our communities.
And I think that is one of the downfalls of this government, because I think that I may be wrong, because this is facts, not fiction. So this is just my opinion. But I think that the government willfully want to keep the people in this country, especially the educational system, they want to keep them down. Because, I mean, when you look within the structure of the government, you look within the educational system, from what it was during 2010 to 2015 to what it is today. And I mean, you could see actually about 70% just gone through the window. And the next little 30% that hang in there, like they just want to keep you just right there. Because, I mean, when you watch everything that the government cut away, that they want to play the introducing now, everything that they cut, if the government had allowed the policies to continue, today I am saying that Trinidad and Tobago would have been in a better place educationally. Our marks would have been skyrocketing from these schools. Correct. And we would have been moving forward.
Even if you take it to the simplest level with the laptop program, we would have been prepared for the pandemic in more than any other country if you just kept that going. Because everybody from 2015 coming into Form 1 would have gotten a laptop. If you had then used a little foresight then and expanded the program ever so slightly, so you maybe get so you get it at in a different form as well, so you're meeting the needs of more people. How many you were not going to have to find 65,000 devices in 2020. It just it just shows you. They talk about it and they talk about the we could talk about the cuts and we could talk about different things, but the real world impact of what happens here. When they say, all right, well, you know, some of the children using laptops to play game and whatnot, all right, it's okay. But the children who were able to perform better during the pandemic are the children whose parents were able to provide these things. And so, in a system where we talk about equity and we do not wish to see the division of who have, the people who have and those who do not have, stretch even further. The people who are passing exams now are the people who were able to provide these things like that because they have it. And so, when you talk about a cycle of poverty, when you talk about people in a space where we are in a space where we discuss hampers as a monthly thing and not on a, because you cannot, when you talk about people with no food, no money to send their children to school, look at where we're at right now and what happens 5 years from now. We are already seeing it with the SCA results. All right, so you have that SCA results last year. They're bracing for SCA results this year already because they already announced a continuation of the vacation revision program when they've given us no data, no statistical analysis of whether the last program was even successful. So you don't care if it was a success or not, you just know you're doing it again next year. Right, well, this year now. And so these children are left out. You reach into secondary school, and you're in the system now, and people calling you dunce, and you're calling you all kinds of things, and so you sit down in the back of the class. You sit down in the back of the class, you can't learn, you're not able to keep up, nobody's paying attention to you, and then you wonder where school violence starts. And then you don't see how one problem here leading to this next problem, you fighting to out small fire here, and you don't realize that it is your total neglect of the system causing each one of these problems. And that is where we are, the reason we are where we are today. And it is really an overall policy of keeping us in a state of dependency on the government. That is all it is. They do not want an empowered population. They don't want a population of persons who are in a space where you can make your own money, create spaces, create opportunities. So when you talk about business incubators, when you see them talking about the homestead programs and giving space for people, youths to farm on land, right? But on the same side, you have young people farming in communities that they've already been in, begging the government for access road. So which is it? Which is it? Do you actually care, or are you mamagaing people? Because how hard it is to fix the agriculture access road so that they could get their produce out? They already have the produce, you know. The road collapse, you ignore them. So it just shows you the duplicity, the lack of political will, and the lack of any desire to get Trinidad and Tobago into a space of self-sufficiency, because it does not benefit a PNL administration.
But do you believe that the people is seeing what you're saying? That, I mean, and that is very important. If the people of this country is really seeing what you're saying, and if they are seeing what you're saying, then what would they do?
Look,
what would they do?
The key part about it is not to get discouraged. We did not become this society overnight. And the one thing about the PNM is that they are consistent. 56 years of consistent messaging, consistent failure, consistent battery of the consistent getting into the minds, into the psyche of a lot of people that we are your only option. There is nowhere else to go. You can't even, as a matter of fact, it's so bad that You're not even permitted to look elsewhere and make a decision for yourself. You can't even talk about it. Don't think about it. Don't look left, don't look right. Look straight ahead at the red, and that's it. That's just the way it is. But it wasn't created overnight. And I'm a person who I don't give up easily. Most of us in our spaces, we do not give up easily. We want the best for our country. We want the best for our society. We understand what Trinidad and Tobago could be. And so the same way they could be consistent, I will be consistent, and I use every platform, every chance I get, every time I get to say it, and I'll keep saying it because they don't get tired. And if we get tired, they win. So you can't get tired, you just have to, you have to keep going.
But permit me to say this. The PNM is consistent in their failures and their lack of policies. And then it seems as though that some people are consistently dotish to be voting the PNM all the time, because I just cannot grasp how people could continue.
When you have any other government other than a PNM government, they come in and you see an immediate action of righting certain wrongs, of fixing things that were broken, things that ought not to have been there. That is what happens, right? And so any other administration other than PNM administration spends their 5 years doing the work of a government. That is the one thing the PNM will not do. No matter how many times they win election, they will not do the work of a government, because that is not what they are there for. They are there to do the work of the PNM. They don't even hide it. They are there to do the work of the PNM because their only job is to win the next election. That has nothing to do with me, it has nothing to do with you, it has nothing to do with the people who vote for them, the people who don't vote for them. So if it is that they know if we build 100 houses here, we win in this seat we didn't win before, they could do nothing anywhere else. They could care nothing about your road in Labre. They could care nothing about the lads up in Taki. They will be, and if they had to spend $100 million to build the house so that somebody could help them build Balize house, they will do that, and they will sleep very comfortable at night, right? No, that is just how, if they see things working out, that they will do, because their desire is to win the elections. The end.
What do you think about the non-publication of the results, and do you believe that the Prime Minister and the Minister have a good argument for not publishing it?
So we remember the genesis of this, right? Last year, they went ahead. They had a preliminary result, and then they had another result, and there was confusion as usual. So, in true PNM fashion, rather than fixing the problem, we say, you know what, scrap it. It's not a competition, you do your best, whatnot. I made the point then that there are lots of students who work extremely hard to accomplish certain things. And who are we to tell them that is not something you want to accomplish? There are people who some people write the exam because they want to pass for the school. Some people write the exam because they want to place first. That is what they want to do. And why should we tell these children, no, don't aspire to that? Same thing, don't aspire to this scholarship. Don't aspire to this, right? Don't want above and beyond for yourself. And so they created a problem. Again, their solution was to scrap an entire system that has been working for decades. And so you question, no, I don't believe they have a good excuse. The problem was them. The problem was never the students. It was never it being that people are focused on who plays first. So everyone is desirous of, if you've done something, you've accomplished something, that you are acknowledged for that. So if by that we got and scrap national awards, we're doing that for our competition. If you want to do good, right? You want to do it for a medal, scrap it. Come on.
And that brings me to another question as you speak about policy that is working well. What are your thoughts in relation to the government want to now interfere with the Concordat in terms of recruiting teachers and so on for these denominational schools?
Again, I mean, we touched on it a little bit before. Why would you see something that is working and interfere with that and leave the things that aren't working as well alone? You know, I mean, and I think that they have been in a space of creating this illusion of doing something, right? So you want to interfere with the Concordat because that says, well, no, they had the they created a committee. You know, this government loves to create a committee, a cabinet appointed committee. They love to do that. So they create a committee to revise or to look at something that you know have been working, and nobody, that's not guesswork. If you look down the line at the results, who are the schools that are performing? Instead of saying to them, take the committee and say, okay, show us what is working well. Tell us what we could do to improve here, because all of us are in one country, right? Nothing divides the students in these schools from the students with the other schools here. When you come out of the school, you're living in the same neighborhood, right? You are neighbors, you are friends. Create a space where we can all excel. Do not try to lower the bar. Let everybody raise the standard. That is all that you needed to do. But again, creating an illusion of doing something by creating the committee, creating a talking point away from their failures to say that it's somebody else's fault that these schools getting something better or doing something different, when instead of saying, let us create a system that works for everybody.
You know, as you raise the point of the government love to create
Committee.
It drives my mind back to a sore point where the government received the Judith Jones report and they have not implement one measure, but yet appoint a committee to look into the. I mean, these people is not only ridiculous, but I think it's a total waste of time. But the next question I was going to ask is, what are your thoughts with the government policies in terms of the reduction of scholarships?
Well, it's the same thing. I think, again, they want to claim that the bursaries expand the space in which you can access funding for university by way of outside things other than academics. You know, you get this letter of recommendation, whatnot. But the scholarship system and the bursary system could have operated together, you know. You had no reason to reduce the number of scholarships. All you had to do as a government, as a sensible government, is take a look at what I assume the Ministry of Planning is doing. Look at gaps in our workforce. Where do we need urban planners? Do we need this? And then offer the scholarships in the spaces that we required the help to build our nation. So you do not reduce the number of scholarships. If you're saying the scholarships aren't helping Trinidad and Tobago because all of us doing law, all of us doing this or whatnot, right? Or we have too much of this, we have too much of that. Do not reduce the number. Reprioritize the targets. When we choose subjects, they act like they never went to school. When you're choosing subjects for A levels, right? You have to choose within a group. You know your grouping is whether it's a scholarship grouping or not, right? So when you're putting together, you say, okay, we're offering a few more scholarships here in this area, a few more scholarships in this area, and still absolutely including like things like the bursaries, because there are students who are not excellent test takers. So they are very bright, really good. Exam day comes, meltdown, meltdown. So of course they need to have avenues where you could show, look, I did all of this volunteer work, I help in my community, I have good grades. So they were supposed to coexist. And again, not that the government was never supposed to see this as a cost, a burden on the taxpayer. This helps the taxpayer in the long run because it creates more taxpayers. Right? If you leave them out, who pay the taxes? If all of us are unemployed, who are the taxpayers? If nobody's working, who pay the tax? Right? So you're telling me about a burden on taxpayers and you have nobody to pay the tax 10 years from now.
Yeah.
So what's the point? Well, in my mind, and they probably thinking, you know, Keith Rowland and say, 10 years from now, not my problem. Not my problem, but this is mine.
I think 2 years from now, 1 year from now, a year from now, it may very well not be their problem. How would you grade this government in terms of education?
I mean,
Jacob gave himself a B plus, and it looked like we only gave him a G. Because he gone.
Right, yeah.
But how would you grade this
I think
this education
even
minister?
an F would be too generous. And I'll explain why I said that, because people will be like, oh God, well, she from the opposition, so you can't recognize nothing the people are doing. That's not the case, right? For every aspect they have introduced, every talking point in the conversation they've introduced as a solution, it is an announcement that they have not started. So the Minister of Education in December, so in her end of year review, early New Year reflection, listed this long list, like, how dare you all say we haven't been doing anything? And if you go through the list critically and you take a look, you see, announce the start of, announce it. But I mean, if you live in here, you know that announcement and that implementation could be 10 years, 100 years apart. And so, an announcement is not a deliverable. An announcement is not implementation. And when you have a track record of being unable to implement anything, an announcement is a comforter food. And so what we have, what we can see, the evidence before us, we know what the results are at a SEA level, at a CSEC level, at a CAPE level. What we can see is we know that there are children who fell out of the system, and we know that the ministry is unable to answer and account for these children. We know that from the reopening of physical school, the gaps in the school transportation system have not been corrected, and literally the cost of getting to school is too high for some people. We know at the beginning of this year, several schools, including 2 in my constituency, could not open because the road to the school collapsed and they couldn't fix that. So we know certain things that within the education sector, while it has been high up on the spending end, on the deliverable end, we know that they are failing. And you do not have to fall anywhere on the political spectrum. You do not have to be interested in politics at all to see it with your own 2 eyes that our system is failing. And for that reason, I will give the education sector an F, and that is being generous.
MP, how when we move around the country, we come across a lot of schools that are hopelessly dilapidated and roof falling down. Most of the classrooms have blown bulbs. In the corridors, don't have lights.
Ceiling fall out.
And the schools, they're just not being painted. No, railings are not being maintained. I mean, if the UNC is to go into power, I mean, that's a mammoth. And this not only we noticing in schools, I noticing in even public buildings and
everywhere.
Schools are really bad.
Yeah.
We afraid to say when we go to our meetings in schools and things, because they will say, well, we back away the business.
But they know. I mean, people are going to these schools. Members of parliament know. I mean, again, going back to the reopening of schools, right at the end of the pandemic, when they were coming back to schools physically, and they said they had all COVID protocols in place for the reopening of schools, they would give some of these schools one thing of bleach and a pack of J-Cloth. That was it. And then when you said, and when we were discussing last year, again, they said, okay, well, over the 2 months, they had X, Y, and Z completed, and these were not completed yet. But you had 2 years, because when the schools were closed, that didn't mean the ministry was closed, The ministry was supposed to be working. Schools being closed had nothing to do with the maintenance of the infrastructure. That should have been the common sense approach, that you didn't have to bulk up everything right away, that you maintain the infrastructure, you fix the big things so that you don't disrupt the education.
Brains there, Victor. I mean, that is so simple common sense. The schools closed down, that is an advantage to do some of these maintenance.
And even when they wanted to argue, okay, there was a specific time when the construction sector was closed, right? But that reopened among the first to allow for the maintenance of our infrastructure to continue. And in all that time, schools were still closed. They utilized that, they did nothing. So that's why I always said, apparently they thought when schools were closed, the ministry was closed too, so that they didn't have anything else to do.
Put up the phone numbers. Actually, we'll take a few calls. We have 10 minutes. We have about 6. Oh, you're having some problems? All right, no problem.
Yes.
So we'll take those calls next time. But we have 6 minutes.
Yes.
MP, tell me something about your constituency. How things developing in your constituency in terms of your infrastructure, in terms of your resources and so on. How things in your constituency?
Yeah. When I say, every time I meet with constituents, obviously, every time we get an opportunity, what bothers me as a younger person entering politics is that I didn't come here to just sit and be idle. You wanted to create a Trinidad and Tobago that you hope to see, and you want to create a representative that you would always have desire to have, so that when my goal was to be able to represent the views of my constituents in Parliament and whatnot. Whenever I go to meetings, the only thing we could talk about, and I understand why, so this is not a critique on anybody, is this deplorable state of the roads, the lack of access because of landslips, the fact that the Wasser line could leak for 3 months, cause a landslip, cause people to lose their house, poor drainage, creating flooding in certain areas. And to me, these things, all these things that we're talking about, should be every citizen in this country, no matter where in Trinidad and Tobago, for the amount of money that has passed through this country. These things should be a given. You must never, as a citizen, be thinking about your road. Yeah. Road is just to drive. It's not something to discuss with your MP. It's not something to think about. It's supposed to, how hard is it to set up an infrastructure program and then an infrastructure maintenance program that you ain't wait until it collapses, right? And so my constituency is one that produces world-class farmers, able to, like I said, feed the nation during the pandemic. We have world-class athletes. We have academics. We have persons running, we have views through the Central Range from parts of from Tortuga, Grand Couva, where you're going, Lasseter. When you see it, you can understand how you can take that, utilizing the community, integrating the community in your development strategy, create spaces for ecotourism, for maximizing the views of Trinidad and Tobago. Take it, because we cannot compete in sun, sea and sand tourism. So let us use what we have. We have not. I went to a parliamentary convention with some persons from Bahamas. One of the former members of parliament in the Bahamian parliament then told me the first time she flew over Trinidad and she saw the mountains, she cried because they don't have that where she is from. Yeah. And she's a very religious person, and she said, when she thought about the passage in the Bible talking about that God will move mountains for you, and she saw mountains for the first time, and we don't even have the biggest, but she saw it for the first time. She said, imagine that's what the Bible was talking about being moved. And we do not market ourselves. We are competing. We are utilizing, again, a very urban-centric, not utilizing the rural development arm of the Ministry of Local and Rural Development, not thinking about how you integrate these communities, all of our communities, in creating a development strategy. And so what I have been doing is, once we advocate for the roads and whatnot, I have been very active in conversations with Ministry of Tourism, with the Rural Development Company, to say, do not leave my people out of your development strategy. Whatever we're doing for Trinidad and Tobago, and you are utilizing the Tabaquite constituency, use as well the constituents of Tabaquite and make sure we benefit, because we are contributors to the society, and we will not be left out of our development. And so I am very proud to sit as a representative for my constituency. I am saddened by the fact that things they ought not to be thinking about, they have to think about, because it takes them away from doing the things that you are great at. Because the job of the government is to maintain your roads. The job of the government is to maintain your drainage. Your job is to be a productive citizen, and you're unable to do that because you study the job of the government.
We have had about 6 or 7 budgets during this Rowley administration. We have also had millions upon millions of dollars allocated for this road program.
Oh gosh.
I think that somebody needs to find out where this money going and what is being done with the money, because we have seen, we fed up here some new company open for road repair. We hear this one, we give them 200 million, that one 500, this, and nothing seems to be happening.
Of course, and then you can't tell me that across the country, at this point in time, anywhere you go, everybody telling you this is the worst I've ever seen.
We went down to see just the other day, and Archie, I telling them as well, Archie will be shaking passing here.
Well, I get frightened by thoughts we won't be able to come back. When I see that landslide and I'm looking down, so I'll just watch straight, I didn't watch sideways, and all I studying is, I wonder if we will be able to come back home, and I'm studying the same thing about Tabakit. I'll probably have to call Awang and make sure he don't put that in a place where we can't come back
I
out.
don't know where you're passing.
It's ridiculous. And we have millions upon millions every budgeted allocation for road repairs, million, 200, 500, 600, 800. Where the money? Because we're not seeing nothing happening on the roads.
I have said that time and time again. All right, even if you respected the population, right, you will give every member of parliament, all 41. Very simple. You say, listen, because nobody's expecting magic overnight. You say, okay, these are the 2 roads we're doing in your constituency this fiscal year, major roads. The Ministry of Local Government shows these are the secondary roads we're giving they do it by you, and everybody. So it's not a PNM UNC thing. So that way, I could report and say, listen, they allocate $400 million, they fix this here with it for this year. We know next year, this one coming. But that is if you wanted to be accountable. But you fixing imaginary road, because everybody road cannot be bad, and you spending $1 billion, because it's not hundreds of millions, $1 billion on what? Where is the $1 billion in road works? Trinidad is a small country. Trinidad is a small country. You can't tell me we miss it. You can't tell me all of us can't find the roads to fix.
Well, this is the thing, boy, Victor, that the MP revealed on the show here, that money is being spent. Money was spent in 2010, 2015, right? And there was unprecedented development and infrastructure delivered. But the same money spending, but nothing being delivered. So where does money go in?
I don't know if it's California. I don't know if it's Switzerland. I don't know, but the money going somewhere. But we are not seeing anything tangible for the money that the taxpayer continue to pay. And let me tell you something. I will deal with that next time. But people have to get up in this country, and MP, I keep saying that people have to demand good government.
Absolutely.
Governance. I don't care if it's UNC. I don't care worse again if it's PNM. People have to demand good governance in this country. People must hold government accountable in this country. It cannot be same old going forward. It cannot be same old. Today, we have seen PNM corruption in a way that is, we could never imagine to calculate the figures coming straight from O'Halloran days right up the road. You understand? And accountability is what is missing. Accountability is what we have to demand. It's too much of taxpayers' money, your own, and people doesn't realize that when corruption cripples a country, not only the economy, corruption cripples the future generation.
Everything. It even, corruption even goes so far as snatching hope from you, because this idea that the only way to go forward in Trinidad is if you know somebody. You have to know somebody to get something done. That is corruption too, you know. That is corruption too. That if you don't know somebody, you will sit down at home and say, well, there's no way I could get through with X, Y, and Z because I don't know anybody. You have everything, you know, all the requirements, but you don't know somebody. That is corruption too.
Let me share something here with you and the public here this evening. I went to license office to get a certified copy. They tell me it will take about 3 months before I get the copy. I said, I want the copy anyway. Listen. I went, make the application, pay for the certified copy, and I expected Archie to go back in 3 months' way. While I'm walking outside, a man say, hey, look, Victor Roberts. Mr. Roberts, how are we going? Well, I don't know the person.
Yeah.
I said, well, good. He said, man, I just follow your program and things. He said, what are you doing here? I said, I come for a certified copy, and they tell me 3 months. He said, 3 months? Give me that receipt.
Go on one time.
Give me that receipt. Actually, somebody telling me here today, that man take that receipt and go on inside. And before you know it, Archie, I have my certified copy.
Yes.
You hear what I just said today? The same 3 months that they tell me I
You
have
have
to
to
wait.
pay him on the side for that?
No.
Nothing. You know what was the payment? He loved the program. He loved these programs. That is how we know me. I don't know the man. He called me Victor Roberts. I just watch that program, boy, real talk. He said, what are you doing here? I said, I come to get a certified copy, but I come back in 3 months. He said, boy, 3 months, not for you. Give me that receipt.
Wait, but to me a certified copy is something you go, you line up and you pay and you get it one time.
You would
Why
think
they
so.
tell you 3 months?
3 months.
Somebody inside there does watch your program and don't like what you say to
No, they say backlog. Backlog, 3 months you have to wait for a certified copy. So what MP Haynes is saying, that you have to know somebody.
Or at least somebody had to know you.
Somebody had to know you.
Somebody had to know you.
That's the reality. I had a friend who went in the drugstore, not in the drugstore, in the hospital recently to get some medicine. And that is the next thing actually. There is no medicine in the
Public.
pharmacy, in the hospitals. None.
Those start there.
Not even
those
Panadol.
guys are another show. And I think you had to bring in Dr. Bodo or one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we wrap it up there because we're going over time. None. And let me tell you something. That man, you know what he get? He check Point, check Sepa, check Sando, and he going up the road. Kuva, and he going up the road. You know what that man get that medicine that he wanted? You will never believe that man get it in Arima. And that man live in Palo Seco. You hear what I just said, Archie? So it is ridiculous, and health getting money. Where the medicine going? They are saying where the medicine going? Tell us where it going. You have it stored in home, you have it stored. Wait, tell somebody. Anyhow, MP, any closing remarks before we wrap up? We just about 8 minutes over. But
I just want to say thank you for having me, and congratulations on an excellent show. And I'm glad for you too that you could see how many people you are reaching, people you wouldn't even know. And programs like these, talking about the realities of the situation that we're facing and what it means for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, so critical, because I mean, it's a hard job, but I am very grateful to you for doing it. So thank you for having me.
well, the privilege and the honor is all ours here in this studio, because when we have people like you and others who will come and very much articulates facts. We appreciate that. We will be asking you to come back again. Of course, we want to hear more about your constituency.
Absolutely.
All right? We want to hear a little bit more about your constituency, and we want to get a little more in depth into the educational aspect. Of course, today is just casual. We just wanted to get a feel
Yes.
how we could move forward, right, Archie? But we will be asking you to return to the program very shortly. We have some other guests will be coming in from time to time. And of course, as we go along, we might even have some joint programs, you and somebody else,
Yeah.
and so on, right? But Friday, we'll be coming in your constituency. We will, Arch, what time we leaving to go up there?
Well, we wanted to do a little different things up there. You know, we wanted to give a little exposure to some of the culture from up there. So
Very nice.
I was looking to start the live about 6 o'clock.
Right.
So that, and plus we wanted to highlight some of the little issues with the landslips and things so that we could show some videos. And not just only bad things, we want to show some of the good things that coming out of that part of Tabakit.
Yes.
So Archie, you believe if the PNM do something good in Palisico, I wouldn't talk about it. I talk about it. I will tell you, hey, Archie, look, the PNM do something good in Palisico. Not the road where they pave in Beach Camp. Because they pave that road going in Beach Camp, then, look, my friend here, we done patching pothole in it already. You understand? So if the PNM do something good, of course I will say they do something good. But thus far, we have nothing good to show for the 7 years of taxpayers' money in this country under Keith Rowley. Keith Rowley was a failure back then under Manning government, and he's a failure still today, and he will continue to be a failure. That is the facts. And if people want to be blind to that, that's a matter for them. So we want to thank MP Anita Haynes for being with us here today. We really appreciate you taking time off from your office day and your busy schedule to accommodate this show here this afternoon with us. We appreciate it. We're saying thank you. We want to thank Archie for doing a good job as he accustomed. He had some trouble, let me just say, he had some trouble with the phone lines today, right? He had some trouble with the phone lines today.
You get too many calls or what, Mr. Archie?
Yeah. So I know everybody was waiting to call because everybody want to ask MP Haynes a question, you know.
Yeah, the phone was ringing.
But you will get the opportunity.
Ringing a lot, but I having a little problem with the audio system here today. So
right, no problem.
Audio a little muffled.
It happens. A man just buy a new car and just break down. So, not saying that the equipment old. That is not what I infer there, actually. So we want to thank you. We want to thank each and everyone for tuning in here this afternoon, as usual. I think Douglas Politics tomorrow, Archie.
Well, I see I set a big guest on Douglas Politics tomorrow. I set about 3 big lawyers. A lawyer hosting the show, and you have 2 big attorneys coming in with him. I'm not 100% sure because, you know, we are not just media people, you know, we are also political activists.
Right.
And there's some serious presentations that we have to make tomorrow to the hierarchies concerning. I think you are part of that meeting, and I think I want to be there to do some presentations as well. So I don't know if I could get somebody to do this part at the show, so I'm not 100% sure. I'm talking with the producer to see what we're doing with Douglas Politics tomorrow. But if it come off, it will be a fiery show because it's 3 big top lawyers.
Good. So there you have it. Tomorrow, bit uncertain, but nevertheless we will play it by air and by ads. Once things running, the ads will be out, so you will be able to tune in. All right. So anything Thursday, Arch? Nothing Thursday, right? Press conference Thursday morning. Nothing. All right. So here is where we'll leave it for this afternoon. We wanted to say thank you for indulging us in the privacy of your homes through this social media platform, and We want to again thank MP Anita Haynes for being with us here, and stay blessed, stay safe, have a good night.